Hello, third grade, and welcome to the first lesson of Unit 2. We are going to be reading all about culture. So this is the first lesson in this unit. I want you, of course, to take a minute to answer your essential question as best as you can over here about how does the environment affect culture? What do you think? After you've completed your answer there, I want you to go down to the words to know section and write what you think each one of these words means. We're going to go through and you're going to see them come up throughout the lesson. So write down the best answer you can think of, and then you can check to see if you were correct as we read.
Lesson 1. All about culture. Essential question. How does environment affect culture? What do you think? What is culture? What is culture, and why is it important? Culture is the way of life of a group of people. It includes things like language, music, sports, clothing, and food. Culture also includes customs. In this unit, you will learn about the cultures of the United States, Canada, Mexico, and the Caribbean. The United States has many cultures from ethnic groups from all over the world. An ethnic group is a group of people who share the same original culture. When people from different ethnic groups moved here, they brought with them different languages, foods, music, and customs. These different cultures have blended together to create the culture of the United States. People have their own culture too. Think about what music you like, or how you celebrate holidays with your family. This is part of your culture. As you read, think about how your culture is similar to and different from other cultures. Quick check. What do you study to learn about a country's culture?
All right, so let's stop and think about that question. What do we study to learn about a country's culture? Now, we just read a section about what culture is. So in order to learn about a culture, we want to study the language, the food, the music, the sports. Everything that we can find about that particular country will tell us about that country's culture. So on the next page, what we're going to be doing over here, and this is page 63, I want you to tell me about your culture. So what is your culture? Answer the questions below. Answering the questions below will help you define your culture. You can use this page to help you compare and contrast your culture with other cultures in North America. So I want you to use complete sentences and details when you're answering these. Please do not give me one-word answers or short phrases. I want to see complete sentences. Your first question says, how do you and your family celebrate holidays? You will start your sentence by saying, we celebrate holidays by, and then you can tell me how you do that. What language or languages do you and your family speak at home? You can start your sentence by saying, at home we speak, and then list out the languages for me. What foods do you eat? What is your home like? What type of music do you enjoy? And what do you do for fun? So all of these questions are important to help you identify the different parts of your culture. Go on to the next page. Once you've completed that using complete sentences and neat handwriting, we're going to jump into the Native American section on page 64.
Native Americans. One way to learn about different cultures is to study the events of the past. This study is called history. Let's start by learning about the first people who lived in North America, the Native Americans. They lived in the areas that are now Canada, the United States, Mexico, and the islands of the Caribbean. Native Americans had different ways of life depending on their environment. Long ago, people had to use the land, animals, and water around them to help them live. Some Native Americans lived in the icy lands of Alaska and northern Canada. They fished through the ice for food. They wore clothes made from animal skins to keep warm. Sometimes they even built their houses from snow. Native Americans who lived along the coasts often lived in small villages. They used the wood from trees to build homes. They fished in the ocean for food. Some used the land around them for agriculture, or growing crops and raising animals. Others hunted for food in the forests. Some Native Americans who lived on the plains were hunters. They were often on the move because they followed the animals they were hunting. Some of their homes looked like tents and were made out of animal skins. The frames of their homes could be easily moved. Quick check. How did Native Americans use their environment?
Okay, so let's stop and think about that quick check question. Now, we know from the passage that we just read and listened to that Native Americans use their environment to make their homes and their food. They used their environments for shelter, and they used the resources they found in their environments to make their clothing. Now, pay attention to your highlighted words because these are your vocabulary words, and some of them will definitely be showing up on your quiz. What I would like for you to do on this page is this section right here where it says reading skill. We're going to compare and contrast, circle how Native American homes were similar, and then underline how their homes were different. So take a look at the examples. We're going to continue reading, circle how they were the same, underline the ways that they were different.
Native Americans in Florida and the Caribbean. Native Americans also lived in the area that is now Florida and the Caribbean. They fished in the streams, rivers, lakes, and oceans near their homes. They also ate animals and plants that lived near their homes. Like other Native Americans, they built homes and created tools from things they found in the environment. Homes were built out of trees and other plants. Tools and weapons were made from stone and wood. The pictures on this page show artifacts from Native Americans. An artifact is something that was made or used by people in the past. The clay pot held water. The stone arrowhead was a tool used to cut food. Quick check. Explain how the environment affected Native American life.
Okay, so let's stop and think about how Native American life was affected by their environment. Now we know first that Native Americans fished in the streams and rivers and the lakes and the oceans, right, that were near their homes to help them get food and to survive. They also used the plants and animals near their homes to make their shelters, make their clothing, make their tools and weapons. So what I would like for you to do on this page is first, we're going to write a caption. So right here, the directions on the right side where it says write a caption for each of the photographs on this page. Now remember, a photograph is a picture. So we have a picture of the clay pot and we have a picture of the arrowhead. So write a caption or write a short phrase or a few words underneath telling what each one of them is. Now, number one says explain how the environment affected Native American life. So we just talked about that. And there's examples of that on both of these pages. And then for number two, imagine someone was studying your culture 500 years from now. Draw a picture of artifacts that they would find. So remember, an artifact is something that's used in daily life. So what are some things that you use every day that if someone came to study your area or your environment and your culture 500 years from now, what are some things they would find that you have at home or that you use regularly all the time? Make sure you use complete sentences up here. Draw really neatly as best as you can for number two, and then write your captions really neatly underneath the two pictures on the right side of the page. As we move on through the lesson, so we've completed 64 and 65, we're going to move into pages 66 and 67, where we're going to talk about European settlers.
European settlers. As time went on, Europeans began exploring North America and the Caribbean. Soon, immigrants began moving to these areas from other countries. Spain. The Spanish were the first Europeans to explore North America and the Caribbean. The Dominican Republic became a Spanish colony after Christopher Columbus landed there in 1492. The Spanish also settled in the United States, mainly exploring the Southeast, the Southwest, and Mexico. Signs of Spanish and Mexican influences are seen across the Southwest. For example, Spanish styles are still seen in many buildings in the region. England. English explorers settled along the mid-Atlantic coast north into Canada. One of their first colonies, Jamestown, Virginia, was built along the banks of the James River. Settlers used the river water for drinking, bathing, and cooking. They also learned from Native Americans how to grow and harvest crops. The English brought many things with them to the United States, including their language. That's one reason we speak English today. France. The French settled in two main areas of North America. The first was in Canada, along the St. Lawrence River and in parts of Newfoundland. The other was along the Gulf of Mexico. Many French settlers stayed in the north, but some moved to what is now New Orleans, Louisiana. Here their lives and customs mixed with those of Native Americans and Africans, who had also moved to the area. Today, some people speak French Creole, which has French, Native American, Spanish, and West African roots. Quick check. What European influences are in the United States today?
Okay, so let's stop and think about all the information that we read. We want to find out what European influences are in the United States today. And in order to do that, we're going to have to go back through these sections and underline the examples of their influences on American culture or culture in the United States. So some of the things you want to pay attention to are the Spanish architectural styles that we find throughout the country. So you're going to read examples of that. So as you're reading, go through and underline the important things that you see. So in the area where we talk about Spain, that first section, we see signs of Spanish and Mexican influence are seen across the Southwest. For example, many Spanish styles are still seen in many buildings in the region. So we know that's one way that Spain has influenced culture and the architecture that we find here in the United States. Now, England, many people speak, obviously, English, right? That's the language that we speak in the United States for the most part. There are many others that are spoken as well. For our French influences, we see that the French settled in two main areas in North America. It was first they started in Canada and along the Gulf of Mexico. So many French settlers stayed there. Today, some people speak French Creole. So that's one of the influences that we have from France. French Creole is a mix of French, Native American, Spanish, and West African as a language. So make sure you go through and you underline in each one of these sections the important influences that we got from those different countries in Europe.
Moving west. Most Europeans settled along the East Coast and in the Midwest. Over time, more people began to travel farther west across North America. This presented a challenge. What forms of transportation or ways of getting from one place to another did people use? Native Americans often traveled by foot to get to new locations. European explorers traveled to North America by boat. In the 1800s, many people used horses or wagons to get to their new homes. In the late 1800s, trains and automobiles were used. Today, many people travel by car or airplane. Quick check. How you would travel from Florida to the Caribbean. Did you know? In the Midwest, a trading post began near Lake Michigan. This trading post became the city of Chicago.
Okay, so we have a map here on this page that we need to color in, and our directions say color the map to show where European immigrants settled in North America and the Caribbean. Now, to find that information, we're going to go to our page that's on the left, and that tells us from each one of those sections where each group settled. So the first section with the red on the map, in the map key, says the English. So when we go over to the page before it where it says England, we see that they came across the Atlantic coast. So we know that they settled on the east coast of the United States. For the next part on our map key, we have the Spanish, and we see that the Spanish settled mainly along the southeast and the southwest and Mexico. So we can color those areas in with green. And then for the French, which is going to be colored with blue, we know that the French settled in two main areas, which were Canada and along the Gulf of Mexico. So make sure you color those with the correct colors. Make sure you're doing it neatly. And then we're going to go ahead and take a look at the bottom of this page where we have a timeline. This completes the timeline to show what type of transportation you would use today to travel from state to state. So it shows you in 1866, they traveled using covered wagon. In 1869, they used the cross-country railroad. In 1896, they used gas-powered cars. 1953, they used a cross-country airplane. What would you use today to travel from state to state? Go ahead and fill it in on that line on the bottom of page 67. Make sure that you colored very carefully. And then we're going to move on to pages 68 and 69. And these are going to be the last pages of our lesson.
Cultures today. People have been traveling to North America and the Caribbean for hundreds of years. Not all immigration was in the past. People continue to come here today. Read about the lives of these students. How does the environment influence their lives? I'm Sydney, and I live in Canada. Some people think that everyone in Canada lives out in the country and plays ice hockey. That's not true. I live in a big city near water and mountains. One reason people live here is because it has the mildest climate in Canada. I can ski in the mountains one day and take a boat ride the next day. I'm Rafael, and I live in the Mexican countryside. My family owns a farm. We raise horses and grow corn. My mom and I ride the horses every day to help keep them healthy. I also help with the daily chores, including cooking some of the yummy meals we make with the corn we grow. The land here is great for agriculture. I'm Tia, and I live in Jamaica. My whole world is surrounded by water. I like to go fishing with my parents. I help them make meals with the fresh seafood we catch. Our special recipe has been passed down through my mother's family for many years. I also like to paint the beautiful plants and animals of my island. Quick check. Think about where you live in Florida. How does the environment affect your life?
Okay, so we don't live in Florida, but I want you to think about your home here in California. And I want you to draw a line from this box that's on the last page to where we are in California. So to that bottom corner of California, right before we hit the Mexican border, that's where San Diego is. And then I want you to do something similar to these little stories that we read from these other students. And I want you to write a biography or a story about your life in your state. So tell me where you live, what are some of the things you do. So look at these three examples and use that same format to write your own response. Now, once you've finished that, I want you to answer your essential question here now that you've gotten a lot more information and you've gotten a better understanding of how the environment affects culture. I want you to write a complete answer down there and then make sure you go back to pages 54 and 55 and fill in everything you need to fill in on the show as you go pages. Please go back and reread this lesson carefully or re-listen to the lesson. Make sure you're taking notes and underlining important things as you go. Once you've completed all of this, you can begin your lesson 2.1 quiz and you can use your book for the quiz. If you have any questions, definitely let me know. I hope you guys have an amazing day. Take care, third grade. Bye-bye.